It all started in a grocery store. Rachael Ray wasn't trying to become a celebrity, she was just trying to keep her job. As the store's grocery buyer, she couldn't convince customers to purchase what she stocked. So, in a last-ditch effort to boost sales, she launched a simple cooking class focused on 30-minute meals. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Rachael didn't just teach recipes, she built a kitchen empire. Her fast-paced meals, quirky catchphrases, and warm personality turned her into a household name. But today, that name stirs more concern than celebration. From strange on-air moments that left fans uneasy, to a quiet, unexplained retreat from daytime television, Rachael Ray's once unstoppable rise has given way to a puzzling, and at times heartbreaking, fall. What really happened to the queen of quick cooking? And why did she walk away when it seemed like she had it all? Rachael Ray's journey isn't just a story of fading fame, it's a story steeped in pain, resilience, and unanswered questions. Her retreat from the spotlight has been slow, almost silent, yet deeply unsettling. Was it burnout? A hidden health battle? Or something far more personal that forced her to step back? With no clear explanation from Rachael herself, speculation has only grown. What began as a career built on warmth and relatability has now taken on an air of mystery, as longtime fans whisper and critics raise eyebrows. But this fall from grace didn't happen overnight, it was a gradual unraveling, hidden beneath bright studio lights and rehearsed smiles. Long before she ever tossed olive oil into a hot pan or charmed viewers with her raspy laugh, Rachael Ray faced challenges that would leave lasting marks. Her now iconic voice, rough, gravelly, instantly recognizable, isn't a branding choice. It's the scar of a childhood spent fighting a relentless viral illness called croup. The infection repeatedly inflamed her throat and vocal cords, permanently altering her voice. While others saw a signature sound, Rachael carried a reminder of early pain, of nights gasping for breath, of fear, and of survival. Her voice wasn't made in a studio, it was shaped in the dark, through struggles most never see, and scars no camera could ever capture. Even after the illness had passed, its shadow never truly left her. The rasp in her voice, the vulnerability in her tone, and the occasional loss of voice during live tapings and public appearances, these weren't just side effects, they became permanent companions on her journey. By the time Rachael Ray achieved national fame, she had already made peace with the fact that her voice could fail her at any moment. But instead of hiding it or trying to sound more polished, she embraced it. That voice, raw, weathered, unmistakably real, became part of her brand. It wasn't perfect, and that's exactly why people trusted it. It was genuine. It was human. But that authenticity came at a steep price. In 2008, Rachael had to undergo throat surgery to remove a benign cyst from her vocal cords. The operation wasn't life-threatening, but it was a serious wake-up call. Years of pushing herself, day after day of talk shows, cooking segments, interviews, book recordings, had taken their toll. She could have slowed down. Most would have. But not Rachael. Instead, she hired a voice coach, rebuilt her vocal strength from scratch, and pushed forward with the same fire that made her a household name. Because that's what Rachael Ray does, she survives, she endures, and she keeps going. Yet behind the fame and food, few know about the darker chapters of her life. In 1997, long before television success, Rachael was simply trying to survive in New York City. Living alone in a modest apartment in Woodside, Queens, she endured something no one should, not once, but twice, in the same devastating week. She was attacked. The first incident shook her. The second nearly broke her. And yet, she didn't quit. She didn't run. Instead, she chose to stay, to fight, to rebuild, not just her safety, but her sense of self. That kind of resilience can't be taught. It's earned in silence, in fear, and in strength that no camera ever sees. A man put a gun to her back the second she was dragged into an alley and beaten badly. She later said it was the breaking point of her safety. Her body was hurt, but the city, which had once seemed like a land of possibility, now felt like a cage. She left the city, needed to heal, and went back to upstate New York. That decision, made out of pure pain, turned out to be the start of everything. Back in the quiet, away from chaos and concrete, Rachael rekindled the love she'd always had for food. She went back to basics by teaching cooking classes and speaking to small groups. She put all of her energy into helping people find joy in the kitchen, even when life was messy, especially when life was messy. When people say Rachael Ray is real, they're not just talking about how she talks or cooks, they're talking about how she's dealt with trauma and still shown up. She never tried to hide her pain, she let it live alongside her success, which is rare. That's why her fans stick with her even when she's rude, blunt, or a little too quick with the sarcasm. They know where that voice comes from. It's the voice of someone who fought her way up from rock bottom and never once tried to hide it. Rachael didn't choose a public persona that fit the mold. She was loud, real, and unapologetic. That's what made her unique and what made people trust her. For a while, it seemed like nothing could stop her. She had a hit daytime show, best-selling cookbooks, her own magazine, and product lines that flew off the shelves. She had the kind of name you could build an empire on. But fame is tricky. It lifts you quickly and turns the spotlight into a magnifying glass, and Rachael Ray knew that. Legal battles, public accusations, and rumors about her personal life would eventually come to light, and that's when the story takes a darker turn. What happened next wasn't just career drama, it was a falling apart that not even Rachael could cook her way out of. "She's not a real chef" before the tabloids and Twitter fingers had anything to say, was the first thing that really hurt Rachael Ray. "She's not a real chef" when people talk about big names in the food industry, was the first thing that hit her the hardest. People usually think of culinary greats like Julia Child, who trained at Cordon Bleu in Paris, Gordon Ramsay, who learned his craft from Michelin-star chefs, or Bobby Flé, who graduated from the French Culinary Institute with fire in his veins. But Rachael didn't come from that world. She didn't have a white coat, go to a fancy food school, or work in a five-star kitchen. Instead, she started her career teaching simple cooking classes at a grocery store in Albany to help busy people get dinner on the table in less than 30 minutes. A local CBS station noticed her and offered her a small cooking segment called 30-Minute Meals. It was supposed to be small, but it became a huge hit. The Food Network and publishers called it a daytime show, and all of a sudden this woman with no formal training, as she told the New York Times in 2005, was everywhere. But not everyone was happy. Some critics called her a fraud, and Martha Stewart publicly slammed her, saying she wasn't good enough to be taken seriously in the cooking world. People paid close attention to one commercial in particular, not because of the food, but because of what she was wearing: Rachael Ray's Dunkin' disaster. You might think that Rachael Ray's biggest business move would be something in the kitchen, since her name is on everything from cheese graters to Dutch ovens. But not every commercial deal went smoothly. One of her biggest problems came from a partnership with Dunkin' in the early 2000s, which seemed like a harmless enough deal at first glance. This may not seem like a big deal, but Rachael wore a scarf in an ad in 2008 that many viewers said looked too much like a keffiyeh, which is a traditional Middle Eastern headscarf. Because of the tense political climate at the time, this image caused a lot of backlash, with critics saying it unfairly linked Rachael to terrorism and extremism. The Los Angeles Times even wrote about how this seemingly innocent fashion choice led to a cultural misunderstanding that no one saw coming. There were then the heavy hitters. Anthony Bourdain, another famous chef who wasn't afraid to say what he didn't like, slammed Rachael's deal with Dunkin', calling it evil and comparing it to giving kids crack. He was referring to the fact that Dunkin's menu wasn't exactly health food, full of sugary drinks and processed snacks, which went against Ray's image of a clean kitchen. If that wasn't enough, many food lovers didn't like Rachael's take on traditional dishes, saying she missed the mark by watering down classics like pole in ways that felt inauthentic and disrespectful. Just when you thought things couldn't get worse for Rachael's public image, there's more to the story: the pole incident. Rachael Ray became famous by teaching millions of people how to cook easy, homey meals, but one of her most memorable TV moments wasn't exactly a win. it turned into a full-on controversy. It all started with a simple recipe read poll what should have been a celebration of A. Many viewers, especially Hispanic viewers, didn't like Rachel's version of Mexican stew. It quickly went viral, but not for the reasons she wanted. People were shocked by how different her version was from the traditional dish. For people who grew up eating real pa, it felt like an insult. Mothers from the Hispanic community took to social media, especially YouTube, where a group called Mama posted reaction videos. These women shook their heads in disbelief. Some people called the dish disgusting, and others even said it tasted like dog food. The backlash was so harsh that videos of their reactions were shared on Instagram, evoking even more harsh criticism. The backlash wasn't just light-hearted teasing, someone even called Rachel's poll a hate crime, which is a term that has never been used to describe food. For Rachael, who had always tried to keep things light and fun, this was a wake-up call that her shortcuts didn't always work out the way she had planned. Rachael Ray's pet food dream. Rachael Ray has always been interested in connecting with regular people and their pets. In 2008, she took a risk and teamed up with Ainsworth Pet Nutrition to launch Nutrish, a line of natural pet food. She was so sure of the quality that she famously said she would eat the dog food herself to prove how good it was. This claim helped Nutrish take off quickly and become a favorite among pet owners who wanted healthy options for their furry friends. What began as a promising business quickly hit a huge problem. In 2018, a New York dog owner named Mark Park sued Rachael Ray Nutrish for $5 million, saying that the brand had misled customers by saying that their super premium dog food didn't contain any glyphosate, a herbicide that no one wants in their pet's food. This was bad for Ray's reputation, especially since the brand had been advertised as all natural and pure. Things got even messier when the J.M. Smucker Company bought the company. In 2018, Bobby Modi, Smucker's vice president of pet products, told The Blast that the company was strongly standing behind the quality of Nutrish and planned to aggressively fight these claims. After years of back and forth in court, the lawsuit was finally dropped in 2021, but the damage to Rachel's reputation was already done. If you think this was the worst part of her story, wait until you hear about the shocking fallout from her crew during the COVID-19 pandemic. We were all affected by the March 2020 lockdown, but for Rachael Ray, it wasn't just about staying home safe, it started one of the biggest scandals she's ever had to deal with. It hit close to home when the virus spread quickly, so Rachael decided that the rest of that season's episodes of The Rachael Ray Show would be filmed remotely from her home in upstate New York. This seemed like a good idea to keep everyone safe, but more than 20 of her longtime crew had to leave. Members like camera operators, audio technicians, and other behind-the-scenes pros were suddenly out of work and didn't get paid for a big chunk of the season. The dispute quickly made headlines, and both fans and crew were shocked to learn that so many skilled workers who helped make the show happen were left hanging in the middle of a crisis. The story painted a bleak picture of people who depended on this job to pay their rent and support their families who suddenly lost their income. Rachael Ray quickly responded on her Instagram story, calling the accusations disturbing. She said she and CBS were talking about ways to compensate those affected. She promised that healthcare contributions would continue and stressed how much she cared about her team, calling them family. Despite her words, the crew was told by November 2020 that they wouldn't be coming back to the Manhattan studios for the rest of the season, which meant they would lose pay for about a year. 2/3 of the schedule. It was a shock to many fans who had been watching for years, and the crew felt betrayed. But the story doesn't end there. In May 2023, after 17 successful seasons and almost 3,000 episodes since its debut in 2006, Rachael Ray ended her famous daytime show. She called the decision a personal turning point after decades of shaping the genre with her signature mix of cooking tips, celebrity interviews, and lifestyle segments. In her farewell announcement, she said that she was ready for the next exciting chapter, which meant a thoughtful and intentional exit rather than fading from public view. The show had earned her multiple daytime Emmys and made her a household name for making cooking seem easy, fun, and real. Instead of taking a step back, Ray used the end of the show as a chance to start over. She co-founded Free Food Studios with trusted collaborators Brian Flanagan, Anthony Amoya and Sean Lee. The company was created to give Ree more control over her content and grow. With Free Food Studios, she wanted to make a variety of cooking shows for streaming services, cable networks, and social media. This was done to keep up with changing viewer habits and give Ree the chance to combine storytelling with instructional content in new, dynamic formats that would appeal to modern audiences. This strategy has already paid off. In early 2025, Ray and her team released several projects under the Free Food Studios banner, including The Chef's Garden on FYI, a show about regenerative farming practices and seasonal produce, and Meals in Minutes were both picked up for more seasons in the same year, which showed that Ray's new media venture was a success. These shows are different in both content and spirit, but they are all based on Ray's passion for global food culture, sustainable cooking, and storytelling that goes beyond recipes. Since she stopped working on daytime TV, she has become more accountable and public. Is always working on her content, like moving from Italy to the US and making her podcast. Ray's journey has seen her go from being a TV host to a multimedia producer and mentor, showing that she has a deep understanding of the media landscape. Her motto, "If you're not dead, you go to work," perfectly sums up her strength. The cancellation of the Rachael Ray Show did not mean the end of her career. Instead, it sparked a much bigger second act. While her career took off in new directions, health concerns kept popping up. In September 2024, something unexpected happened that made Rachael Ray's fans nervous. A promotional video meant to show her usual charm, this time set against the beautiful scenery of Tuscany, ended up raising questions that no one was quite ready for. The video showed Rachael telling a funny story. The joke she told about almost tripping over Tony Bennett's shiny floors was typical she, funny, warm, and a little goofy. But what got everyone's attention wasn't the joke itself, it was the way she spoke. People noticed that she was speaking more slowly, stumbling over words, and losing some of her usual quick wit. The reaction online was immediate and intense. Fans who had always admired her energy and bright personality started posting their worries in comment sections and forums, asking if she might. Many people were wondering if Rachael wasn't talking about the rumors that she was having health problems or if this was a sign of neurological issues. Rachael didn't respond to any of them and instead kept posting the happy cooking videos and kitchen stories that made her famous in the first place. Her silence, on the other hand, made things even stranger for someone who is known for being honest about her life's ups and downs. When reporters asked her spokesperson for a comment, she wouldn't give one. This made fans even more confused, and they wondered what was really going on with Rachael Ray. Was there something she wasn't telling us? The questions didn't go away. Fast forward to Mother's Day in May 2025, and the worries came back. In a new video, Ray shared a sentimental message to honor all moms, and her speech slowed down in the same way that had gotten so much attention before social media. While the media was once again filled with arguments, some viewers rushed to defend her, saying she might have just been tired, old, or having a bad day. Others weren't so sure and demanded that she explain what was going on. The truth was still hidden beneath layers of speculation, but what really stood out was how her fans' feelings changed. These were people who had stuck with Rachael through years of success, controversies, and personal problems. People who cared about Rachael felt a strong sense of protectiveness toward her. She wasn't just a TV personality or a celebrity chef anymore, she was someone who had been through storms in public and in private. Her decision to keep quiet only made those who cared about her feel more empathy and worry for her. Throughout it all, Rachael stayed visible, she kept working, creating, and pushing forward with the same determination that had always defined her career. But behind the scenes, unanswered questions lingered, casting a shadow that no recipe or smile could erase. Could completely erase this silence, this struggle that no one openly talks about? What does it mean for Rachael's future, and how will it shape the next part of her story as she finds comfort in podcasting? When most people think of Rachael Ray, they think of the happy, upbeat chef who made daytime TV fun with her quick tips and sunny personality. But behind that smile, a quieter, more reflective side of Rachael has been showing itself. and many fans were surprised when she started a podcast in October 2024. The title of her podcast, I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, was a risky move that marked a new phase in her career and a new way of telling her story. It's not at all what you'd expect from a celebrity chef known for quick and easy meals. It comes from Ray's own philosophy about pushing through life's challenges even when you're hurt, tired, or just plain worn out. The podcast wasn't about recipes or kitchen hacks, it was a place for honesty, vulnerability, and real talk about resilience and reinvention In the first episode, Rachael talked about some of the problems she's been having lately, such as injuries that were slowing her down and deep personal losses that were weighing heavily on her heart. One of the most revealing parts was when Ray admitted that she doesn't look up her name online anymore because she doesn't want to get caught up in the negativity, but she remembers the worst of it. There was a website called I Hate Rachael Ray that was full of mean comments. It's hard to believe that one person could have been through all of those scandals and still be standing. But here she was, laying it all out in this new, more straightforward format. The first episodes were a mix of heart-to-hearts with close friends and celebrity acquaintances. They talked about everything from finding creative fulfillment to aging gracefully and dealing with grief. Rachael's warmth and natural curiosity came through on the mic just like they did on TV, but with an extra layer of depth she wasn't showing on TV. In a February 2025 interview with People magazine, she talked about how the podcast let her talk about things that a daytime cooking show never could. I like meeting new people and being able to expand and expound on what I wish I had time to do in formats I couldn't do it in before, she said. It was clear that this new outlet was more than just another job for her, it was a lifeline. But after putting out 8 episodes between October and December 2025, things went quiet for a while. In December, the podcast suddenly stopped. Fans were confused and wanted to know what was going on. It turned out that there were problems behind the scenes, including production delays and Rachael's anger at the team that was supposed to be putting out the episodes. In an interview in February 2025, Rachael said, "I'm pissed at how long it takes them to put it up." Rachael is always honest and doesn't sugarcoat things. At the South Beach Wine and Food Festival in early 2025, she told fans that the podcast was still going strong. She talked about how important it had become as a creative outlet and how much she valued this new way of connecting with listeners. The show might not have the polish or frequency that some people expect from a big-name star, but what it lacks in flash, it makes up for in honesty. This wasn't just about sharing recipes anymore, it was about sharing her life as it was now, imperfect and still unfolding. It's becoming more common for famous TV personalities to start podcasts. In today's crowded and fragmented media world, authenticity is gold. Podcasts let stars speak in their own voices with fewer filters and scripts, leaving more room for real emotion. Dax Shepard with Armchair Expert and Gwyneth Paltrow with the Goop podcast are 2 examples of how powerful this format can be. For Rachael, starting a podcast wasn't just about switching platforms. It changed into approximately embracing vulnerability and finding a brand new way to live relevant and actual to herself in a transferring landscape. However, while she unearths solace in this new medium, the street ahead is not smooth. The struggles that driven her to reinvent herself through I Will Sleep When I'm Lifeless are far from over. There's greater to her tale, difficult moments, surprising setbacks, and the sort of tough truths that make you root for a person even if matters aren't best. Rachael Ray's ambitious comeback. It's clean to think of Rachael Ray as the cheerful queen of short meals, the lady who grew to become 300-minute food. Right into a family word. But in June of 2024 she surprised all people with the aid of taking a very one-of-a-kind turn. She wasn't in a studio kitchen anymore, she wasn't surrounded by shiny lights or a clapping target audience. As a substitute, she was back in Italy, specific Tuscany, the equal dreamy nation-state where she and her husband John Cusimano had tied the knot years in advance. This new bankruptcy came in the shape of a show known as Rachael Ray in Tuscany. It wasn't flashy or excessive energy, it didn't try to be. It became slower, softer and deeply personal. Every of the 14 episodes invited visitors into Rachael's personal Italian villa in which she cooked rustic dishes like squid ink pasta and pollo al maiden. Now not for rankings, however, seemingly out of love, she shared testimonies, nearby components and quiet reflections in a setting that regarded greater like a postcard than a set. The display aired on FYI, however it felt more like a love letter than a manufacturing. It became a Much cry from her daylight TV days, however it struck a specific kind of chord at the back of the camera, though Rachael become doing even more than simply making pasta around the same time she launched Loose Meals Studios, a creative manufacturing organization that is probably her most formidable flow, but she teamed up with three longtime collaborators Brian Flanagan, Anthony Amoya and Sean Lee to build something sparkling from the floor up. This wasn't pretty much making cooking shows, it turned into about developing a brand new type of meals media in which the stories mattered as a great deal, because the meals with this studio Rachael wasn't just a host anymore, she became the boss, the visionary, the mentor. What made Free Food Studios special wasn't simply the content material, however, the shift it represented. Through 2025 they have been already rolling out authentic series like Meals and Mints and Worldwide Soul Kitchen. They even released The Chef's Lawn, a thoughtful 10-episode show with farmer Lee Jones that explored regenerative agriculture, yes, the type of farming that is precise for the planet and your plate. Rachael extensively utilized the platform to highlight new talent she subsidized, indicates like Immediately Italian, hosted via Anna Francis. Gasoline and Jake Makes It Smooth with TikTok pleasant chef Jake Cohen. Those were not simply spin-offs, they were seeds, initiatives that would grow without having Rachael to be the front and middle. She was evolving and speedy, but not simply due to the fact she had to. She seemed to in reality understand in which Meals Leisure became headed in recent times. Humans need more than just a recipe, they want emotion, culture, a story they could feel. Rachael placed it perfectly in an interview from early 2024. People do not simply need to discover ways to cook, they want to experience something at the same time as they are looking. So why then, if Rachael turned into creating, mentoring and staying in advance of the curve, did it nevertheless sense like something changed into off? She turned into anywhere and but not pretty present in the same manner the Tuscany display turned into stunning. However, some lovers noticed her energy felt unique, her public appearances had been fewer, her speech a bit extra strained, and even though she saved pushing forward creatively quietly, something regarded to be transferring below the surface. What commenced as a career reinvention becomes starting to experience like a distraction from something deeper. Thanks for looking. In case you discovered this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you by no means omit a brand new upload. We would like to listen your mind. Drop a remark below and be part of the verbal exchange, and if you're geared up for extra, click on the next video on your display screen now. There may be lots greater to explore.